My name is Nicolas. I am 37 years old, and after a lifetime of trying to find myself, I am finally ready to start back at the very beginning. I was born Nicolas Ruiz on July 16th, 1988, at the Kaiser Permanente Hospital in the Arden Arcade area of Sacramento. Today, I live in western Montana, rebuilding my life. I'm a wildland firefighter. And after a long battle in my life with mental health struggles and addiction issues, I have been clean and sober and rebuilding myself since July 27th, 2024. As I've come through my journey of sobriety, I've realized that if I'm going to truly heal myself, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. This is my vlog, my journey about who I am and where I have really come from. The moment that everything changed. Every story has a moment where everything shifts. A moment you don't recognize for what it is until years later. For me, it started with a conversation that should have never happened. They sat me down, smiling, speaking in upbeat tones, like they were about to tell me something good, something I should be excited about. That was when Katrina Edwards and William Hodek told me that I was no longer a Ruiz, and my last name was now Hodek. I wasn't excited. I was confused. I remember looking around the room and then back at their faces, and I was trying to understand why, something wasn't sitting right. That's when they told me. It was framed as something positive and happy, but inside it didn't feel like that. It was presented as something given to me, but it only felt like something was being taken, like everything was being taken. I didn't understand why I couldn't be me anymore, why my name and my identity had to change. I didn't understand why the person I wasn't enough for them. Life didn't fall apart all at once. It didn't explode. It was little, quiet, unsettling, subtle things. Not long after that conversation at the dining room table, everything flipped over once again. There was no real reason, no real explanation, at least not one that I understood anyways. Just more pain, sadness, and anxiety wrapped in fake smiles. No warning, no chance to say goodbye to anything that had ever felt familiar. One moment I had a life, and the next I left everything behind. And before I could even process what was happening, I was clear on the other side of the world. As a kid, a move like that doesn't come with clarity. You just get told to pack, to follow, to trust. But inside, I felt a kind of loss I did not have words for yet. As a child, you don't understand betrayal. You don't understand identity. You do, however, understand the feeling of things not lining up. You feel the tension that adults pretend isn't there. You hear the silence that says more than words ever will. You feel something shift below the surface, even though you don't know what it means yet. Shortly after that moment, the day I was told I wasn't a Ruiz anymore, everything shifted again. I didn't understand it at the time. I didn't understand much of anything at that age. Looking back now, the timing is impossible to ignore. Now as an adult, as someone who has gone back through my memories and my timelines, that move doesn't feel random. It feels strategic. My name wasn't changed because of some family choice. My name was changed just to move me overseas. My last name had to match my military sponsors. It was logistics, paperwork, a rule. But just because the adults had a reason doesn't mean I had one or that I understood. In Germany, nothing made sense. My environment had changed overnight. But the confusion in me, that stayed. That conversation, the sudden move, these moments planted the first seed of doubt in me. I didn't know it then, and I wouldn't understand it for decades. But that was the beginning of me realizing that that version of my life that I was raised on wasn't the one I was living. It wasn't reality. But it was the first crack in a story that was never mine, and it was only the start. And at that moment, I didn't have the words for it, but I do now. That word is uprooted. The thing about uprooting children is it plants seeds of trauma. Seeds of trauma that don't surface until much, much later. Eventually we came back. It wasn't a triumphant return. There was no feelings of home. And that's when these consequences of these buried truths started to surface. It didn't feel familiar. There was nothing comforting about it. I remember landing from Frankfurt DFW. Everyone on the plane was sick but 3 people, and I wasn't one of those people. Coming from Germany to Texas was its own culture shock. I had to leave yet another version of myself. Coming back didn't just mean coming back and readjusting to America. It meant leaving a piece of myself there, trying to find out who this new me was here. To add more to the confusion, I could not, for the life of me, get any adults to understand that it was pronounced Ruiz and not Ruiz, and I wanted neither. At this point, my name, my identity, everything of who I felt and thought I was, started feeling like a yo-yo. Back and forth, up and down, changed and unchanged, and changed again, with a new pronunciation, ethnicity, and culture to come with it. And every time, I just went with it. Like, okay, I still don't know the first me. Then, the stories I was told, because what came next changed everything about what I thought I knew about myself. Every lie eventually meets a lie it can't outrun. For me, the cracks didn't explode all at once. Started small, subtle moments, little inconsistencies, quiet doubts. I pushed down because I wasn't allowed to ask questions. The stories didn't match. There were plenty of moments where things didn't add up. Details would change depending on who was telling me the story. I would overhear people telling stories and know that that's not what I was told. Stories started warping my memory. I was coerced and manipulated into calling Nick Ruiz my sperm donor. The villain stories, the escape stories, the stories meant to define him and ultimately I. I didn't know the truth. How could I? I wasn't allowed or had a way to question it. So these stories, these fabrications that I was fed became a part of my core identity that I was forced into. The shame that grows when you're told that you come from someone terrible. You start to believe that that's who you are, that there's something inside of you and something inside of me that's inherently just evil and wrong. And that's just not the case. When I did question it, I got anger and resentment instead of answers. That's when I learned one of the unspoken rules. Do not question the story. The story wasn't designed to be questioned. It was designed to be obeyed. These were the seeds of the mental health, the addiction, and the constant struggle to feel like I belonged anywhere. The feeling would never leave, the quiet sense like something was always wrong. That the hatred I felt for my biological father just wasn't natural. The fear did not fit me. I knew that there were pieces missing. Pieces that were intentionally kept from me. It was not rebellion. It was not dissidence. It was instinct. And really, deep down, big part of me always knew the truth long before the evidence. There were moments that in hindsight were big, glaring neon signs. A comment slip, contradicting stories I heard over and over. A look exchanged between adults I wasn't meant to catch. I didn't know it then, but those early aftershocks were just from a much, much bigger lie. The truth doesn't disappear. It waits. When it's ready, it'll knock loud enough for everyone to take notice. The test. I didn't take it for answers. I took it as a favor to my sister. I had no idea that a simple test would detonate the truth. What 23andMe and other like things don't tell you is the amount of anxiety and just the strain of every day trying to continue. It takes a few weeks for the test to come in. And every day, that thing just sits right in the back of your mind. Like, is it today? Is it today? Part of me expected my stories to line up. But then again, I knew where the stories came from. The results had other plans. The moment the results came in, it was like any other notification. My phone dinged, I opened the email, and I clicked the second page. My entire world shifted. It was like everything I'd ever known and ever believed about myself and where I came from. Everything of who I was had been ripped out from underneath my feet by my mother, even though I hadn't spoken to her in quite some time. My sister and I were supposed to share a sperm donor, or at least that's what my mother always told me. So I checked the paternal side of the family tree. 4 distant cousins, no relation to Nick Ruiz. That is something that I realized in that moment that I couldn't say out loud. That my sister wasn't my sister. That's not the case anymore. Nothing has changed between us. That will always be my sister. Just another fallacy foundation of another one of my mother's lies. As I've sat with the truth throughout this year, I have come to accept the fact that my mother lied to me. Wasn't the first time, may not be the last one. But I know DNA doesn't lie. The questions now, who is my father? Why was I lied to? Why was my father's name erased? Why was someone who was so bad forced upon me? And what else was and still is being hidden from me? These aren't small questions anymore. I will have my answers as to who I am. The search begins. The story doesn't get easier, it gets clearer.